So I came across something today that I think we should probably all take a moment and consider. Um, Came across this out of the Daily Signal, and I'm gonna. It's not per se about the subject that this focuses on, but I'm going to relate it to something else that I think is going to be a critical debate coming to our country in just a matter of months. The Daily Signal has this. This is the headline: Planned Parenthood overbilled taxpayers 1 in 7 times. Report finds. And Kelsey Harkness, the writer, says after discovering alarming instances of billing inconsistencies, Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin ordered healthcare officials to block all state funding for the 2 Planned Parenthood clinics located in her state. These errors result in overbilling to the Oklahoma taxpayer, Fallin said. In a joint statement, both Planned Parenthood facilities called Fallin's actions premature and incredibly disappointing. In other words, we're going to try to claim that she's just mean-spirited and she won't let women have reproductive choice. And incredibly disappointing, as the writers say. Planned Parenthood staffers routinely purchased birth control pills for just under $3, billed Medicaid $35 for the same package of pills, and got reimbursed for $26. That's quite a profit margin, isn't it? Now, I mention that because 10 years ago, there was a dentist working, and I believe she was in the metropolitan New York City area. It might have been Brooklyn or Bronx. And she was billing the government for patients, poor patients. And one day the government stopped and they started counting up all of the number of patients she had, and they said, "Look, she's seeing nearly 1,000 patients a day. This can't be possible." This went on for years. She bilked the government out of millions of dollars. That's because there are no controls with these government-run healthcare systems. Why am I mentioning that? Well, have you been reading the news about what's going on with Obamacare? Because we're going to be moving from Obamacare likely to an effort to try to get us what's called a single-payer system. That is, the government will cover all medical costs. And you say to yourself, why gosh, that would be free. You go to the doctor sees you, you don't pull out the checkbook, you don't pull out the debit card, you pull out no cash, and the government then just writes the check to the doctor or whoever your medical provider happens to be in that situation, to your pharmacy, and you go, gosh, but it's free. Except that in order to pay for this, the government then has to turn around and tax you to death. Some countries that have these type of plans, they're taxing the population now at 90%. What do you do with your extra money? You won't have any. Don't worry about it. So that will happen. Then the government will set policy and say, these will be the reimbursements for doctors and for various other medical providers. And the government will set the cost. So in a sense, a doctor who has gone to school for years and years and years and years to learn his or her trade will then become a ward of the state. And everything will be dictated by what the state will pay that medical professional. Many will simply decide, you know what? I went into cosmetic surgery to make a little money, or I went into some certain boutique medicine to make money. I'm going to bail out. And maybe even a lot of general practitioners will do the same. They'll just say, I had all of those medical bills, and now these people are telling me that I can only earn so much, and I've got my malpractice insurance, and that's cutting into my bottom line. And they'll go do something else with their lives. Teach, go into some research. They'll find some other area where they can actually make a decent living. So that will mean a shortage of medical providers as well. Did you hear this story? Nation's largest insurer may exit Obamacare due to losses. Phil Klein, writing at the Washington Examiner, United Health Group, the largest insurance company in the U.S., on Thursday slashed its earnings outlook, citing new problems related to Obamacare, telling investors it may exit the program's exchanges. Now, again, it is the largest of all of these providers. It's the largest provider in the United States. United Healthcare has pulled back on its marketing efforts for individual exchange products in 2016. The company is evaluating the viability of the insurance exchange product segment and will determine during the first half of 2016 to what extent it can continue to serve the public exchange markets in 2017. That's a statement from the company. Now, there's much more detail to all of this, but what is it going to mean for all of you? A fellow by the name of Jonathan Bush. He is the CEO of Athena Healthcare. That's a competing, obviously, outfit. Jonathan Bush, interesting name. I heard the name, and I did know another Jonathan Bush when I was a young reporter way back in the 1980s. The state party chairman, when I was living in upstate New York, our state party chairman was named Jonathan Bush. And John, it's a common name. I'm assuming that a lot of people, the Bush name is common, and the name Jonathan is common. So they may be related, they may not be. That Jonathan Bush, who was the New York State Republican Party chairman, happened to be the brother of the then president, George Herbert Walker Bush, and the uncle to President George W. Bush, and the uncle to current presidential hopeful Jeb Bush. So it could well be that this Jonathan Bush is a member of the family, and with connections, he's the CEO and president of Athena Health. He was appearing on Bloomberg News, and he is reacting to the collapsing Obamacare market and make some predictions here about what you're going to see.
Not surprising. I think the political pressure for the big...
I'm going to start that over because I just blasted my ears out and there might have been some distortion. So let's go all the way back to the beginning.
Not surprising. I think the political pressure for the big, huge payers who do a lot with the government to play ball has waxed now, and so they're free to act rationally. And as one of the many little tidbits of Obamacare is that the product called health insurance was so tightly regulated under it that you couldn't do any product management. You couldn't build a differentiated product. The whole idea, they specifically said, we want everyone to be able to spreadsheet and just choose the lowest number. So who the hell wants to play a commodity magnet game, especially for a small number of lives that have to be individually customer service? So, yeah, no, it didn't surprise me in the slightest.
So, Jonathan, to reiterate, as far as we know, they've said they may pull out. It's not a done deal yet. But if they were to pull out, at what point is there a critical mass that's lost and it really undermines all of Obamacare?
Well, it depends on who in the Obamacare sponsor group you're talking about, because many in Obamacare were hoping that, you know, the commercials would drop out and sort of there'd be this great call, a sort of draft a one-payer movement or draft a government payer into existence movement. So those guys might be giggling a little right now.
Giggling a little bit right now. In other words, Bernie Sanders and all of his ilk who've been saying that what we need is to tax you to death so that we can actually save you. They're looking at this and they're wetting their lips about it all. And I'm telling you right now, this was the plan all along because of people like Nancy Pelosi who said we have to pass the bill to find out what's in the bill.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it away from the fog of the controversy.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
Yes, she certainly has. So where do we go from here? Well, we could go back to the old-fashioned route. When I was a boy, which I used to say was not so long ago, and now I've got to say it was quite some time ago, in the grand scheme of things, though, we still had indoor plumbing, and we had electricity, and we had television and radio, and we used to see on Truth or Consequences they'd be giving away a Mana radar ranges. So that's called a microwave oven. So I'm sort of into modern times, even as a young boy. And the automobiles that my dad drove around were about 22 feet long, and the size of yachts, very comfortable, I should note. That probably kept us healthy too, because if you got in an accident, there was a lot of metal between you and the tree or the other vehicle that you happened to hit. But when we were sick, when we were kids, Mom would take us to the doctor. Dr. Taylor, he delivered me. He was still my doctor when I was an adult, I should point out. I went to school with his daughter. I'd go to the doctor, and my mom would pay, a certain amount of money to Dr. Taylor and insurance companies at the time. Think about it like this. The insurance company is there for catastrophic care. Your role is to take care of things on your own otherwise. When you get an oil change, your car insurance doesn't cover it, does it? When you buy new tires, your car insurance doesn't cover it. Your car insurance is there for catastrophic coverage. Somehow, we've morphed health insurance into this notion that it should take care of all of these smaller things that Mom and Dad used to pay for with the old-fashioned indemnity plans. We have a caller with us. You're up next. You're on the air on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com.
Yeah, I just had when Miss Pelosi, you played the recording, she called it the fog of controversy. It was some people would also call that rational thinking, information, knowledge, and I guess not doing something with your eyes closed or your back turned. That would be wading into the fog of controversy, I guess. I just thought it seemed kind of ridiculous, so I just wanted to
Yeah.
maybe make a ridiculous comment. Thank you.
Thank you much for the comment. It is not ridiculous. I happened to be there that weekend, that March weekend in 2010. What happened was 3 or 4 days before the bill was going to go to a vote in the House, Michelle Bachmann decided to issue a call to people around the country to come to Washington and demonstrate. She did that on a Wednesday. 25,000 people showed up, which is quite impressive in a matter of 3 days. 25,000 people showed up on the following Saturday morning from all over the country. I actually hosted a talk show that morning, so I didn't go to the event, but a lovely redhead of my acquaintance at the time, I just gotten off the air, and she called and she said, hey, the bus that I rode over on is going to be coming back in a few hours. I want to stick around for the vote later today and see what happens. So she said, here's my thinking. You drive over here. It was only a 2-hour drive for me at the time. She said, you drive over here, and you can hang out with me, and we can join the demonstration throughout the day, and then we can get some dinner, and then you can drive me home. All right, that'll work for me. So I did somewhat like her at the time, and I think it was mutual. So I got in the car and I drove over, and I stopped at the train station, took the train down to the Capitol Hill. It's called South Capitol Station, and she met me there, and we ended up staying at the event all day outside the rally. Pelosi was so angry with the demonstrators showing up that she had guards outside with rifles, and I mean, we're not talking a typical hunting rifle. These guys were armed for war. And I was looking around at the demonstrators. We met a wonderful couple from St. Louis, and they brought their children along. 2 little children in a carriage, and they were pushing their children around under the eyes of men who could shoot them, because Nancy Pelosi wanted to try and put fear into the hearts of the opposition. And I looked at that moment. The guys who were out there, they weren't going to shoot anybody. You know, a lot of those guys think exactly like we do. They're just doing their jobs. They're out there to look like, like a small army that's protecting Pelosi from this angry mob of children in baby carriages. And some of them actually, I said, can I get some photographs? And they posed for photographs. So it turned out not to be a bad day. And then I was there during the course of the evening as the chants went up, Nancy, Nancy, Nancy. And every once in a while, a curtain would get pulled back and someone would glare down at us. And then she just turned over that hourglass, telling us, you only have a few more minutes to live until this hourglass is actually empty, and then I'll get your little dog too. It was an interesting day, and then the Senate followed up, and the Senate passed it over the objections of the American people. Because the economy was in a tailspin, and Americans said, you know what? I don't need a job. Heck no. My children don't need a future. What I need to have for the 25 million so-called uninsured is health care. Sure, that's what you all said. And a Democrat Congress responded. And look what they gave us. They don't know what they're doing. 9:20. Bill Colley with you on Top Story. Hey, more on the terrorist attacks coming up in just a moment.